Tomorrow, an existing house somewhere in North America will be sold to an incoming homeowner. Does that incoming homeowner know the condition of the attic ventilation? Does she care? Was a home inspector hired to check out the attic ventilation? Did the home inspector give the attic ventilation a passing grade? Hi there. Welcome back to another episode of our podcast, Airing It Out with AirVent. My name is pscelsi. I host AirVent's Attic Ventilation Ask the Expert seminars offered every winter to residential roofing professionals all across North America since 1998. A popular section in our social media activity and in our seminars is found in the field, in which members of the industry share their findings through photographs. Often the findings are attic ventilation mistakes, which we then use as teaching moments to explain how it could have been done better and why it's important that it be corrected. Very recently, a handful of found in the field submissions are situations in which an existing home is sold to a new homeowner and the attic ventilation errors went undetected until they led to significant problems to the roof and the house. Mold, wood rot. In one case, the entire roof had to be replaced. To talk more about this, let's welcome to our podcast Vince Vargas, owner and CEO of VIP Inspections in Houston, Texas. Welcome to the podcast, Vince.
Well, hello, Paul, and thank you for having me. It's an honor and a pleasure. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for your time today, Vince. I'm excited about this topic. Vince, you've attended our seminar twice, actually, back-to-back years, and kindly gave us permission to use a testimonial because of the value you said you received from the educational session. I'd like to read that testimonial for our listeners, please, right now. As a home inspector, this opened my eyes, and now I have a more focused view on attic ventilation. Vince, could you please explain what a more focused view on attic ventilation looks like?
You betcha, Paul. So before attending your seminar, I'd do the inspection, and I'd say, okay, it's existing. Yes, it looks like it's flowing great. Okay, good. And I know, the guidelines that are required. And never in a million years did I think, well, wait a minute, maybe we should hear it from the horse's mouth. Let's see what the manufacturer's instructions call for. So
Sure.
after your seminar, I tell you, Paul, I could not drive down a street and not look at a roof and think, oh boy, things just jumped out at me. It's kind of like owning a certain color car. You don't notice that until you own one. And that's exactly what happened. So yeah, a ton of information.
Thank you so much. Vince, you just touched upon it. Would you feel comfortable elaborating just a little bit more on what would have been a normal attic ventilation review prior to coming to the seminar?
You betcha, Paul. So I see this a lot, even today. So we'll have them using static vents right up against ridge vents, and I'm thinking, golly, or they have their gable vents wide open, but hey, we've got ridge vents. They're pretty. And, it never occurred to me that, hey, wait a minute, that's not going to work. So, yes.
You touched upon the second most common mistake in residential attic ventilation, Vince. For our listeners, it's mixing different types of attic exhaust vents on the same roof. We talk about it heavily in the seminar. You don't want to combine ridge vents with gable vents, wind turbines with box vents. No combination. And that's what Vince is touching upon here. So thanks, Vince, for sharing that with us. Prior, you saw that, maybe questioned it, but you didn't know for sure. I'm glad the seminar pointed a light on that for you. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes, sir.
Vince, we've had another home inspector in the past as a guest on our show, Barry Sigler, in the Cleveland, Ohio area. He shared with our listeners during that episode the concern about where the bathroom fan ductwork terminates. It should not terminate in the attic because that's too much moisture to dump into the attic. In general, Vince, why should an incoming homebuyer be concerned about the current status of the attic ventilation in the house they are considering buying?
Well, Paul, quite simply, it's going to, here in the Houston area, in this region, a ton of our mechanicals are in the attic, including the hot water heater. But recently, I had a brand new home buyer. He was 11 months into it, a partner of mine in a networking group. He said, Vince, he said, I went up to store some things in my attic. He said, I noticed my brand new furnace is rusting. And that could you come have a look? And sure enough, I went over there and they had no ventilation. He had actually, I take that back. He had out, he had ventilation, he had exhaust, but he didn't have intake at all.
Mm.
So all that, yes, and along with, let's just make this the perfect storm. They had the bathroom exhaust and going into the attic. So here in the Houston, super humid area, then he had that on top of it. House wasn't even a year old, and the furnace, coil, everything was shot. So yeah, he ended up having to get an attorney and going, and he got everything rectified. But golly, that's to me, that's huge.
Yes. Thank you, Vince. That's a lot to go through when it's avoidable. Vince, boy, this is awesome. You just touched upon the number one mistake in residential attic ventilation, and that is not enough intake ventilation. For our listeners, attic ventilation is a two-piece puzzle. 50% of the airflow should be intake, 50% should be exhaust. So thank you, Vince, for that. Vince, can we do devil's advocate, please? I like to do that when it's
You
appropriate
bet.
with the guest. Thank you. All right, so Vince, you're the home inspector, like you are in real life. You're the home inspector that the potential buyer has hired to inspect the house. I'm the current home seller, the homeowner selling that house. Why should I care as the home seller about attic ventilation? Because honestly, Vince, I'm not going to be living here much longer.
That's right, Paul. Yeah, it's kind of one and done. I'm washing my hands of this, but actually, no. If besides peace of mind, you don't want to give somebody a broken home, right? Something that could harm that nice family that you chose from these dozens of offers to buy your house, and you chose this one because they got three beautiful kids, they're a growing family, and you're going to hand them off something they have to live with mold or something in their, in the house. So no. Um, for me, it's peace of mind, and also from a seller standpoint, if they were to go have a seller's inspection, which we provide, and it's available out there, they would know ahead of time. That way, it's not a surprise to them when they go to sell the home and the buyers have an inspection. And they say, "Hey, oh, by the way, the attic needs this, and this 10, $20,000 worth of renovations to get it to where we need it." Now he's got a whole different situation on his hands. So yeah, I think those 2 points are a valid thing for sellers to consider.
Fair enough, Vince. Thank you. Vince, are there safeguards for the unsuspecting potential home buyer when it comes to attic ventilation other than hire a qualified home inspector?
For sure, Paul. Have a good cursory look outside and look for the telltale signs. Peek your head up into the attic and actually look around. Do you smell anything? Go with your senses. Does anything look wonky, so to speak? That's a technical term, by the way.
I like it.
Um, but yeah, so does it smell right? Does it not look right? Do you see mold? Do you see anything like that? Just common sense stuff, right? And yeah, really, you can see that from the outside. I can't tell you how many houses I've seen where, you see it just dripping out from the side, the eaves of the house. You're like, oh my gosh. So yeah, just kind of be uber aware.
Sure, sure. Vince, the industry that we're in, residential roofing, has asked for additional content to help the professional roofer educate the homeowner. And what came to mind listening to you is homeowners could do just a baseline research on their own. They could Google. I would imagine they could Google on the internet things to look for regarding attic ventilation. We have a portal on AirVent.com, homeowner hut, but they could also do some, beyond a physical view and walk around and popping your head in the attic. They could do some pre-research online.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, Paul. And I'm glad you mentioned that. We offer a link in our reports to your sites, your educational sites, really for the homeowners. and any of our clients that want to go there. And then we provide them to, they're good for when we refer it to our roofing partners or the problem, they're able to go there as well. And I tell you, we honestly, when we're onboarding new inspectors, that's kind of a mandatory thing as they go through you guys's training and then attend a seminar if it's coming around, and it's just it's invaluable.
Thank you very much, Vince. Appreciate that. Thank you. I know, Vince, you credit the AirVent seminar for increasing your focus on attic ventilation, and thank you again for that. In your opinion, Vince, is attic ventilation on the list of important things home inspectors should check?
Absolutely, it's at the top. It's one of my top three, if you will. But yeah, that's so important.
Can I put you on the spot, Vince, if you don't mind?
Sure.
What are your top three?
Well, it's my client's top three. So they want to know first, hey, how's my roof? Then they want to know, hey, my shingle's okay, and hey, can I take a shower in there? How's the water pressure? Believe it or not.
Fair enough. I like
And
that.
then
Yeah.
the electrical's down the list somewhere. Yeah, okay. I want to be able to charge my phone is about what it comes to, or I want to turn on the hot tub. But yeah, no, roof, foundation, especially in our area, and plumbing are biggies.
Okay.
At least that's what I've seen from the clients.
Sure. Sure. Hey, Vince, in your experience as a home inspector, have there been red flags specific to attic ventilation that either held up or prevented the sale of a house between seller and buyer? And you could be generic, of course, but
Sure.
have there been such situations?
Yeah, absolutely, Paul. So I've had some where, like we had talked earlier in the podcast, was about combining the ventilations or no ventilations or not enough intake. And as a result, the end product was just a ruined mechanical set up in the attic and, some mold or biological growth, as we call it. So yeah, that has been deal breakers for some of my clients. Some, not so much. They're like, okay, well, we're gonna, budget and we're gonna get concessions, but more often than not, it's that right there. But yeah, we've seen it.
Okay. Vince, is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners, either from the perspective of the seller of the house or the potential buyer of that house, or really, Vince, anything in general you'd like to pass along to our listeners?
Yeah, absolutely, Paul. Educate, educate, educate. Learn. Education is knowledge. Learn the most you can. And a lot of people, laymen, they don't know this, but hey, we have the building code, and guess what? That code is trumped by the manufacturer's installation instructions. So if the manufacturer says it's okay to do it like that, then it trumps the building code. Means it takes precedent over the building code. So
Right.
really, you want to learn straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak. So that's huge.
Vince, man, thank you for bringing up so many things. I appreciate that. The industry doesn't always realize that the building code specifically says, please follow the manufacturer's installation guidance. So thank you for bringing that up. That's a real good point. Thank you. Awesome, Vince. Vince, I want to thank you so much for being our guest today and sharing your knowledge and experiences. And thank you again for that very kind seminar testimonial and for promoting attendance at our seminar on behalf of AirVent, the roofing industry, homeowners, potential buyers, sellers. Thank you so much, Vince.
Well, thank you, Paul. It's my pleasure. And I'll tell you, every time you have an event in Houston, me and my company will be a part of it from an educational standpoint, and any support you need. We're here for you and your clients. So anything we can do to help educate.
That's fantastic of you, Vince. Thank you so much. Both the seller of the house and the potential buyer of that house should take a vested interest in the attic ventilation, even though it's likely for different reasons. Well, that wraps up this episode. Please leave a review on YouTube or whatever platform you use to listen to this episode. Be sure to let us know if there's a topic you'd like us to cover in future episodes. Maybe you'd like to be a guest one day, like Vince was a guest, or maybe you know someone who would make a great guest. Drop us a note on the podcast page of our website, airvent.com. You can also reach out to us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, now called X. And please come back for more Airing It Out with AirVent. I'm Paul Pscelsi. Thanks for listening.